to other Rebecca.
My name is Deborah.
Hey guys, it's Karen, my review for the series finale of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 4, Episode 17. I'm in love, and, guys, honestly, look, I was absolutely hyped for this finale, obviously, considering the way things left off. I look forward to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend every single week, but it was me being excited with a bit of somberness, knowing that this would be the last time I'd be talking about this show. Knowing that this would be the last time, I'd be seeing these characters, waiting for musical numbers to come out and things like that, and that's something that I wasn't fully prepared for. And in fact, to get prepared for it, I spent the whole week listening to old songs from the show and things like that, just reliving certain moments just because I wanted to be as prepared for the finale as possible, and I have to say, this did not disappoint at all. I honestly cannot be more pleased with this finale. This is everything that I want it to be. It is absolutely perfect, and I really can't praise it enough. But we're just getting to right now, and I really just kind of want to dive into it, talk about everything that happened in this finale. Now, unlike most of my reviews, where I typically go plot by plot, I talk about, like, Rebecca's story, then I talk about, like, the B and C storyline, I can't really do that for this episode because the whole thing was mainly focused on Rebecca. There were other things going on, which I will talk about, but most of this episode was solely focused on Rebecca, and honestly, considering we started out with her, this is all her show, it makes sense for that to be the case. I honestly wouldn't have wanted it any other way, and I'm glad they did close it the way they did, but I want to talk about, first thing we see, this whole idea of them doing a time jump, I thought was a really great idea. It starts off and immediately we're kind of thrown off. We're like, all right, Paula's talking to her. We don't really know what she's talking about. Where she's saying that you're going to confess your love to the world and things like that. We think it might be about Josh, Greg, or Nathaniel, but then we realize that it's actually a time jump, and this happened earlier, and we don't know when exactly it was. All we know is that it says earlier. So is this later tonight? Is this another night? I mean, we don't know when exactly it takes place, and I thought it was actually very clever the way they did that, and look, I know a lot of people might be disappointed with the way this finale turned out, but I knew this finale was not going to be about who Rebecca ends up picking. I knew that's not what they were doing. I knew that they were setting that up because that's what the old Rebecca would have focused on. This is not the old Rebecca. The old Rebecca is overwhelmed by this idea. She wants something more than just this. In her mind, sure, she does care about Josh, Greg, and Nathaniel, but what she's really focusing on, the thing that is really on her mind, that those three are kind of getting in the way of, is what her essential purpose is. And I always knew that was something that we were going to focus on, because, back when we had that episode with her trying out for the musical, and then her realizing that she didn't want to be a community theater actress and things like that, ever since then, she's been struggling on what she really wants to do in life, and I love the way this starts out, with her talking to the Dream Ghost, which it was so great to see the Dream Ghost again. That's one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, so getting to see the Dream Ghost again was so great, and, basically she goes through all of her futures with Josh, Greg, and Nathaniel, and everything's great, except Rebecca is not happy, and it's not because of anything that the three guys have done, it's that Rebecca doesn't really know who she is. She doesn't know what she wants, and I like that that's what this episode was focused on. Sure, the romantic stuff can be a part of it, but this whole show has been about Rebecca finding her purpose and finding that pursuit of happiness, and it made sense for them to, I think, focus on that rather than which guy she's going to choose. Sure, that's a part of it, but again, the show's never really been about that, and I'm not upset that this episode didn't focus on that. Instead, we focus on what really is the key relation in the entire show, and that's the relation between Paula and Rebecca. And I've said this many times before, Josh, Greg, Nathaniel, they're all great, but those two, that's the relationship that we've been following this entire show. I mean, the show started out, and Paula and Rebecca, concocting schemes with Josh, but through and through, Paula has been the one to stick with her. Paula has always been there for Rebecca. She's the one that understands Rebecca the most, and I thought it made a lot of sense to focus on those two, and especially when it comes to what Rebecca's revelation is. You know, while she is doing this musical number and everything, Paula finally questions her on it. Paula finally realizes, you know, something's up. She doesn't know what's going on, and Rebecca finally confesses it to her, and I thought that was great. I love the moment where she finally lets Paula in on, like, all right, this is what happens to me, this is why it happens. You know, I always imagine that I'm in a musical and things like that. And look, a lot of people can say, well, how does that make sense? Because we've had other characters singing in the show. Again, I see it as like, you know, Rebecca's sort of musical sort of thing. It's rubbed off on all of them, and all of them probably have these fantasies as well. So that's probably why we're kind of seeing things through Rebecca's eyes, even when Rebecca is not present in the room. Either way, I'm not going to complain because I enjoyed it. And I think this is a really great moment for Rebecca and Paula. It's them understanding each other. It's showing that, really, at this point, there's nothing that Rebecca can do or say that Paula is going to question. Paula is with Rebecca till the very end, and I love that Paula finally gets Rebecca to realize, you know, what her inner purpose is. It's not that she is just Greg's girlfriend or Josh's girlfriend or Nathaniel's girlfriend. No, her purpose is to be a songwriter. That's what she's meant to do. And she needs to take time for herself. She needs to take time to you know, venture out and learn how to play the piano, learn how to be a songwriter, you know, learn how to do those things, then she can focus on the guys. And I've heard a lot of people, you know, misconstrue this as like, oh, the show's saying that she doesn't deserve love, and I would completely disagree. I think what the show's trying to say is that, sure, those guys are all viable options. It's why Rebecca didn't choose any of them. And again, I didn't want her to choose any of them. That's how I wanted things to end here. But it's mainly because Rebecca has to find herself. Rebecca has to know who she is, and who you end up with is a reflection of who you are. Rebecca doesn't know who she is. She's now realizing who she is, and now that she has, maybe she will, you know, run into, like, Nathaniel one day, or run into Greg, or run into Josh, you know, who knows what can happen, you know, really any of them, I do think she does have a future with. I think Nathaniel is probably the most viable of the three, but I see a scenario in which maybe she ends up with all of them. Maybe those futures are true. It's just she's a lot happier because she knows who she is. And again, I like that the episode focused on that idea rather than who Rebecca is meant to end up with. And I know a lot have said, like, why did they focus on this again? That was the point. The show is misleading us into thinking that it was going to end a certain way, only for them to come around and be like, you know, this is what the show was essentially about, and this is what was Rebecca's inner purpose, and you definitely do see that here. I mean, Aline, Brosh, McKenna, and Rachel Bloom, they said they've planned this from the beginning. You can definitely tell. I mean, that final scene, it's masterful stuff. I mean, when she's talking about how she finally feels happy in her life, and that she did find love, the love of songwriting, the love of talent, the love of many countless friends, you know, it doesn't really matter if she's in a relationship or not, but she does have the close circle of friends. I mean, we think back to season 1 when she was stressing out over planning a party simply because she didn't have any friends besides Paula and Daryl at the time. Everyone else were just acquaintances to her. Now she has a lot of people supporting her. She has a huge circle of friends. I mean, look how many people came to the open mic night. Even like Josh came at open mic night, and he can't stand Rebecca. He doesn't like her at all. He pretty much just resents her, you see. You know, he pretty much resents her and wants nothing to do with her. He still came to support her. So you see how much support Rebecca has. You see how much she's grown throughout the years, and I really can't think of a better way for things to end here. I know we want to focus on the romantic pairings, but it's really never been about that, so I'm not upset that they didn't focus on that. I can understand for people who want Nathaniel and Rebecca to be together, or want Greg and Rebecca to be together, but hey, look at it this way. Because she didn't pick a guy, it doesn't rule out the possibility of her ending up with Nathaniel, her ending up with Josh, or her ending up with Greg. You know, there's always possibilities there, and that's something that I definitely did like seeing. The show is very open-ended in that way, where it's saying that anything can really happen for Rebecca, and it's not saying that Rebecca is just completely fine. No, her borderline's always going to be an issue. It's not like it's gonna go away or anything like that. It's just that she is able to move past it. She's able to feel a lot more content because finally she knows who she is. She's not being forced into a profession. You know, this isn't her mother telling her, oh, you must be a lawyer and you can't do anything else. This is finally her realizing who she is. It's basically her saying fuck you to that pretzel lad that got her to West Covina in the first place, and now she's finally found her inner purpose, and I really can't think of a better way for the show to end on that note. And look, whether you wanted her with Nathaniel, Greg, or Josh, and I've said it before, I don't do ships. I usually just pick what the show wants me to pick, and that's kind of how I go with it. Again, that was never the point of the show. This whole show was supposed to be a deconstruction of romantic comedies. It was subverting the tropes that you typically see in romantic movies. And what better way to do that than to have her love not be with one of the guys or someone else that she's been pursuing, but her passion, her drive in life, the thing that makes her feel something. I mean, that's the real kind of love that cannot be changed, that can't be compromised in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's something that we really did see here. And I absolutely love seeing that. So many shows, you know, they act like, you know, you go with this, you end up with this girl, you end up with this guy, and it's, you know, that's it. Everything's going to go great for you. But this show is trying to say that, hey, that's just a part of your life. You know, what really matters in your life is what you're doing and your drive. And, you know, nothing's going to work out for you if you don't know who you are and what you want to do in life. And I think that's something that this show touched upon very well. And I cannot praise that ending enough. It is absolutely perfect in my eyes. And I really can't think of a better way to go out. So, okay, with all that stuff out of the way, I really want to talk about the other things we have going on here, which, honestly, in terms of the supporting characters, I can't be more satisfied with that either. I mean, really everyone got something here, whether it was Paula and her realizing that she could do this pro bono and that she can have a role and she can be outspoken in this firm. She's not just going to let her boss tell her what to do, and I really did love that. You know, the scene with her and the one prisoner, which I honestly love that the prisoners from the first episode have still played sort of an integral role in this season. It shows that everything really has connected together in the end, and I think the season's really benefited from that. And, you know, Paula is still going to take on this case. Paula is still going to find a way to, you know, help out these prisoners. She still wants to help out her friend, and I really did like seeing that. Or say Josh, for example, who, you know, we don't know a ton about what's going on with Josh, but we know who he moves out. We know he became a magician. We know he met this girl there. So Josh is finally settled down. Josh finally seems like he has a profession as well. Greg with Serrano's, we know that that's thriving at this point, and he is much more, I think, similar to Rebecca, much more content than he's ever been, and I really did love seeing that. Whether it was Valencia and her finally getting to propose to Beth, even though we didn't get to see that arc, we know Valencia's frustration. We know that she wanted Beth to propose, so the fact that she finally got to do it, you know, it's a big victory for her. It finally feels like, you know, things are working out for Valencia and Beth. This couple that seemed like they were on the rocks for a while, things are working out, and they are actually prevailing, and it's great to see. Hell, even some of the really small characters, like, say, George and his ponytail, still got closure. Stuff like that, I loved. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It was so George that he just wanted to grow out this long hair just for no reason, and I thought that was absolutely hysterical. I love stuff like that, and that's something else I'm definitely going to miss from the show. I mean, such a great supporting cast overall, but the two that I enjoyed the most, the two that I thought were probably the most satisfying, one is Daryl and April. I loved where this ended up going, where, you know, we hadn't seen April for a couple episodes. I'm glad they brought her up again, and we see that they are together. They've decided that, you know, they're gonna live together. She's now adopted Rebecca, so she is now a part of the family, and this is a great move for Daryl, because now he has someone that he can agree with. I mean, you know, I know a lot of people want White Josh and Daryl together, but the show has established that that's just not going to work. White Josh doesn't want children. Daryl does. April April also wants children, and Daryl does. So it's a match made in heaven in that way. These two are going to stay together. This seems like something that can work for Daryl. Now, does it mean that it works 100%? I don't know, but in the moment, it seems that Daryl has found someone. Daryl finally has someone that he can agree with. He finally has someone that is by his side. It's a really great moment for Daryl. You know, it's not him, because Daryl, for a while, I mean, a lot of people like to walk all over him, but we see this season he's really grown a lot of independence, and he's grown a lot more defiant and things like that. And April is someone that, you know, you can see that he is with her in spite of their daughters feuding. Their daughters are willing to put that aside, and he's okay with that. He wants to be with her. He wants to maintain this relationship, and it's a really great move for him. However, the one that impressed me even more is where they went with Nathaniel. I adored this. I was not expecting them to take this direction with him, but I really did love this overall. Basically, Nathaniel realizes, you know, after Rebecca has rejected him, which you could see that he was kind of expecting, even though he had the horses and things like that planned, he was still expecting that things were not going to work out between them. He realizes that he doesn't want to be a lawyer. This is not a profession that he's ever wanted to do. It's something that stresses him out. It's something he finds boring. He would much rather be in the zoo. He wants to work at the zoo. And honestly, this makes a lot of sense. And this is something I've loved about this show. Something that seemed like a joke. You know, I go to the zoo. That song he sang like last season where he talks about whenever he needs some time to just, you know, marinate on something and he needs some time to just, you know, get his thoughts out, he goes to the zoo. We realize that this is something that he's wanted to do. This is something he's serious about. And it seems like, you know, he's similar to Rebecca, was able to redo his entire life and just change everything. But as Rebecca said, he did it for the right reasons. He didn't do it because of someone. He did it because he himself wanted to. He knew this was the right direction for him, and it shows how far Nathaniel has come just from a season. I mean, hell, a season ago, he was telling, it seemed like he had changed, but then he was telling Rebecca that nothing they were doing was actually their fault, and that everything was, you know, from their ancestors and things like that. Now he has taken that accountability. He is willing to accept that he has flaws, and he is also willing to accept that what he's been doing has mainly been in part to his fear of his father, and him finally seeing him just stand up to him and tell him, no, you're not going to tell me what to do anymore, I'm an adult, was a great moment. I love seeing Bert and Daryl support him, and that was probably, in terms of supporting characters, that was the most satisfying stuff to me. I love what we got there with Nathaniel. I can't be more impressed there. But again, I want to reiterate, really everyone got something to do here. I mean, we had that moment with White Josh where, I mean, sure, we hear his apartment burned down and things like that, but the joke was not, you know, at the expense of him. Like, I think a lot of people misinterpret it. It wasn't really supposed to be at the expense of him. It's more just Rebecca's indifference to him and his massive indifference to her. These two have never really had a relationship. They've never really clicked. They never really will. White Josh was there because, I guess, you know, his friends wanted to support her, and he probably went with them as well because they're his friends. He'd never really liked Rebecca, and as he says, he probably never will, and that's just kind of how it is. And I thought that was really fun overall. Even characters, like I said, like George and Maya and Tim, everyone really did get something to do. I love the moment where Rebecca is talking about how, you know, she might end up with someone in the room. We pan to, like, Bert and Jim, and then we pan to Father Bra and AJ, who, AJ was such a great addition this season, let me just say. I think AJ just blended right in there. That cut, that, like, pan we did, I absolutely loved, and I thought it was probably one of the funniest moments in the entire episode. But, like I said, the whole supporting cast really had something great to do here, whether it was something as big as what happened with Nathaniel, or if it was something as minimal as just Heather and Hector's hot tub. I really did adore that, and I couldn't think of a better way for it to end. So I already touched upon some of the humor in this episode, because there definitely was a lot of stuff that made me laugh, for sure. I mean, some of the greatest moments, just in the first few moments, when Maya is talking about a big reveal, and just reveals that she's just wearing a tank top, and it's not even that big of a deal. No one has any reaction to it, was hilarious. Stuff like that I really do love. I love the moment where Nathaniel is talking about how bored he is of the firm, and you can tell he's clearly insulting Daryl and Bert, but then he's like, oh, no offense, guys. Stuff like that was great. And I also love that this episode, it felt like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It never got too over-sentimental. Even in the moment where Rebecca's having that, speech where she talks about how she loves everyone, we go back to her talking about the random people at the table that were just there for open mic night. The episode never took itself too seriously in that sense. And I really did love seeing that overall. I love seeing the moment where, Rebecca is, at first, the guy who was introducing her clearly wants nothing to do with her. I mean, he's really annoyed. The moment where he's like, "You're gonna cure my insomnia," that was absolutely hysterical, and I love stuff like that. And again, this show just understands how to ride the line between those two things so well, and that's something that a lot of shows just don't know how to do. But the blend of comedy and drama and all that stuff is something the show has understood so well, and it's something I'm definitely gonna miss. And then in terms of music, not a ton to talk about here, actually, and honestly, I'm fine with that. We've seen what this show can do in terms of music. I thought it made sense that really the only songs in this episode were all reprises. It made sense for them to do that, especially when it comes down to the 11 o'clock. It's a perfect, it perfectly sums up Rebecca's arc throughout the entire show. Every single one of the songs that we heard samples of and her, briefly singing in that medley, which was beautifully done, let me just say. But every single one of them was pretty much a turning point for Rebecca, whether it was her thinking that she would end up with Josh and they just never have any problems again because, oh, they're together and nothing bad's ever going to happen to them, or her realization that she tends to ruin pretty much everyone's lives whenever she's around. She is the catalyst for every terrible thing that has happened to her friends, that revelation. Whether it was her getting diagnosed and thinking that everything was going to be okay after that, or whether it was her this season finally learning to, internalize that darkness in her and finally try to do something about it and realize that it's okay if she can't do it all herself, that it's okay if she needs to self-medicate. Stuff like that, they've been huge moments for Rebecca, and I love seeing sort of the culmination of that here. 11 o'clock, like I said, it was just a perfect sublimation of everything we've seen from this show in terms of Rebecca, and I absolutely loved the way it was done here. It encapsulated everything we've seen so far in the show, and I thought it was a beautiful ode to just her entire arc. It was absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, the moment with Rebecca and Paula, where Paula is now entering Rebecca's sort of fantasy world. It sums up their relationship as well. I mean, the first time we saw them, one of the first things they ever did was that West Covina reprise, and seeing them do it again, but this time Paula understands her more. It's no longer Rebecca living in this fantasy world. It's her finally feeling like she doesn't have anything to hide, and finally feeling like Paula, that's someone she's always trusted. She never has anything that she needs to hide from her again. It's just a great moment. Seeing those two have the utmost trust in each other, it's just beautiful to watch, and I thought it was a great moment overall. So in terms of music, great stuff as usual. Absolutely adored it, and again, something I'm gonna miss it so much. Honestly, guys, Fridays was always one of my favorite days of the week, and a lot of that was dedicated to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, getting ready to listen to those songs and think about, okay, what role is this going to play in the show? Because I'm not going to lie, I'd listen to them early. I adore the show. Of course I'm going to listen to the songs early, and I try to think, like, all right, what's that about? What does that song have to do with anything? What role is that going to play in the show? And that's something that I am deeply going to miss. I'm going to miss listening to the songs on replay and things like that, and waiting for the next songs to appear. It's just something that I don't think will ever be replicated, and I think the show just did it so well in terms of music, and it's something that I'm definitely going to miss. I mean, a lot of the time, with musicals, there is a dud, but I honestly can't think of a single dud that this show ever had. I think in terms of music, this show was just always on its A game, and like I said, this episode, I think, was a very good example of that. So overall, this finale was pretty much everything that I could have hoped for it to be. I think it was a perfect way to close out Rebecca's arc. And again, it's not trying to say that Rebecca doesn't have a future with Josh, Nathaniel, and Greg. Again, notice she never ruled out the possibility of them being together. She said that it could happen further down the line. But what the show's trying to say is that you need to know who you are. You need to focus on yourself and then think about getting into a relationship. Because if you get into a relationship with someone that doesn't understand you, you know, how can they understand you if you don't understand yourself? And I think that's what the show is really trying to say. It's the idea that, you know, you don't just want to be someone's husband or wife. You don't just want to be someone's boyfriend or girlfriend. You want to have a lot more purpose in life. You want to know what you are set to do in life. I mean, you know, we all do have, you know, we all do have something. There's always something out there for all of us. And I think that's really what this show is trying to say. It's equal, you know, we're all equal to all opportunities. We all are open to anything. And if we set our mind to it, we can do it. This is something that I think Rebecca has just been sitting on for a while, and now realizing that she can become this songwriter, I think it's going to get her to a much better place mentally. And again, that the stability of her relationships, that'll eventually, I think, be a question too, but it's just not something that she is worried about in this given moment. And I think in that way, it was just the perfect way to close things out. It finally transitions her from what was a crazy ex-girlfriend that was once obsessed with Josh to now being someone who is a lot more in control of herself, someone who is much more aware of her problems, someone who isn't afraid to, you know, ask someone for help, isn't afraid to open up to someone about how she's really feeling in that given moment. No more is there any sort of, you know, worry about, oh, what is this person going to think? Or, oh, I can't do that in front of this person. Does this person like me or not? Those things don't bother her anymore. Now she's more focused on herself. She's more focused on what she wants to do. And now that she knows what she wants to do, I think she's going to feel a lot more content in life. And in that way, I really can't think of a better way to end the show. Between that, the way they closed out pretty much everyone's arc here, this is a perfect finale in my eyes. I really can't think of anything that this finale didn't do right. It remembered what the core of the show is. It's about Rebecca and Paula. It's about their friendship. It's about the emotional stability of Rebecca Bunch, but it's also, again, about her career goals and what her drive is in life. And we finally have the answer to all of those questions, and it's just such a great way to end things. And look, I know some people wanted to hear what the song, you know, she was playing was and things like that, but I'm pretty sure the song was probably one that we've heard before. And I think knowing that, you know, now she's able to go out and you know, play this song in front of everyone, no longer feeling like she needs to keep that inside and hide that, now realizing she, like she said in the episode, that all the gray areas and all that stuff, it's all out there for people to see. It just feels very satisfying. It feels like the culmination that we needed, and because of all of that and more, I am absolutely going to give the series finale of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 4, Episode 17, I'm in Love, in A+. All right, so with all that said, of course, you know, I'm not going to wrap up things quite yet because I do want to talk about this season as a whole. Look, this season I came into knowing that I was going to review every episode for you guys because I do adore the show. And I know this isn't a show that gets a lot of attention, but because it was the final season, it didn't feel right to just review the entire season, especially knowing that there was going to be 18 episodes. And I think in the end, it was a good decision because what I loved about this season is the more sort of calmer feel of it. This season felt a lot more fun and a lot more mellow. It felt like there was a lot less at stake this season, and it should. This season was supposed to be about recovery. It was supposed to be about, you know, finding yourself. It was supposed to be about Rebecca recalling things from her past and finally applying it to her future and realizing what it actually means and how it can actually help her. And I think this season really did work as such. And something else that I think worked really well about the season is since we know all of these characters, we know the hardships they've been through, we had a lot more of a reason to care. And that's especially true when it comes to characters like Josh and Nathaniel, who I think were probably the two biggest characters in terms of growth this season. I mean, Josh changed enormously. I mean, from where he started off in season 3, you know, where he was just someone who was just constantly relying on other people, didn't really seem to have much of a goal, and then flash forward to the beginning of this season, you know, he's getting therapy from Dr. Akopian's husband. He seems a lot more in tune with himself. He has a goal of what he wants to do. He reaffirms his relation with Rebecca. Things just completely turned around for Josh Chan, and I think if you weren't on board with Josh before, you're definitely on board with him now. I think they did a really great job with getting us to understand Josh more as a character, and I think it really did a great job in showing that these two can have a platonic relationship. Even though I think Josh is always going to have that love for her, these two can work as friends, and that was one of my favorite things about the season, is that relationship that Josh and Rebecca formed, the one that was focused on being friends. And again, yeah, eventually he did grow attracted to her, but they never really affected their overall friendship that they were forming, and I really did enjoy that overall. You know, the years of history between them, it all really did pay off, and I really did enjoy that a lot. But also, like I said, when it came to Nathaniel, who for me, next to Rebecca, was probably my favorite character this season. I love where they went with him. I love that he realized that he needed to be a better person. He needed to take that initiative, and he wasn't doing it for Rebecca. At first, he was. You know, clearly he was leading her on, and that's why he was doing it. But eventually, he just realized that he wanted to be a better person. He realized that he wasn't, you know, a very good person. He realized that he was doing a lot of deceitful things. He realized that he wasn't very nice to people, and he wanted to turn that around, and I think we got to see a lot of great growth on Nathaniel's side, and I really love seeing that. I mean, his episode, of course, is still a standout for me. I love what it did. I mean, even though, you know, Greg and Rebecca didn't stay together for that long, that doesn't take away from how effective that episode still was for Nathaniel. I mean, he changed so much from that episode. After that episode, you know, he's no longer going after Rebecca and trying to, you know, scheme his way to her heart. He's now letting her be independent, and I really did love seeing that. I mean, hell, look at the finale where he wasn't surprised that she didn't pick him. You know, even though he had all this stuff planned for her, he wasn't really surprised about it. It just shows how much his character has turned around, and I really did love seeing that. And the other characters this season, I mean, something this season really did benefit from was having 18 episodes. They were able to tell a much more fleshed out story. It never really felt like anyone was being underused this season. Daryl had the most he's ever had to do in this show pretty much since season 1, which I loved. I loved the stuff with April. I loved even getting to see a little more of his friendship with Rebecca and Paula. That was also great. You know, Heather had some great stuff with Hector, and even though Heather and Valencia, they weren't a huge part of the season, they still gave them enough to do, like Heather and Hector getting married, Valencia wanting Beth to propose to her, seeing Valencia just always wanting to, you know, have things go her way, seeing Heather realize that she doesn't have to, you know, want to baby Hector and things like that, was all great, and I really did love what we got to see there. And even some of the supporting characters like Maya and Jim, I mean, they even got stuff to do this season. I think it all just benefited from a longer length, which of course leads me to new Greg. I know a lot of people have complained about Skyler Astin. Honestly, I was never bothered by him. I always appreciated what they were trying to do with Greg here. Yes, he felt different. Yes, he felt a bit off, but that was the point. The point is, this is a new Greg. This is Greg that has been changed from him leaving West Covina. Aline, Brosh, McKenna, and Rachel Bloom have even said that that was the initial plan. Like, if they were to bring back Satina Fontana, it would negate the arc that they were trying to do with Greg. And I completely agree with that. I think if they were to bring him back, sure, it would be great to see, but he left for a reason, and it wouldn't really feel like he changed all that much. So him coming back as a new person shows how much he's changed, and showed how Rebecca views him differently. And I think, you know, Astin really did warm up to the role quite quickly, and I really did like what we got with him, especially the moments in episodes 12, and especially that reprise of What'll All Be. I think he just did such a great job, and I was never bothered by him. I really like what we got to see with Greg overall. Look, in terms of complaints of the season, there really aren't too many. I really only have like 2 sort of flaws with the season overall. that one episode, episode 4, again, not a bad episode or anything. I do think it's still a decent episode. It's just, as you guys know, I do think it is the weakest episode of this season, solely because of the whole thing with Rebecca's brother. I mean, they never really came back to it. It never really went anywhere other. I mean, mainly that was, I think, supposed to focus on Rebecca and Nathaniel and things like that, and it was showing Rebecca trying to form a bond with like the last person in her life that she didn't really have some sort of a bond with, and try to fix that. But it really didn't do a lot. It feels like the one episode this season that wasn't necessarily inconsequential, but does feel like it could have been a little bit more overall, because every other episode this season, it feels necessary. It feels like it got us from point A to point B, where this episode, on the other hand, while it is well done, it just feels like an episode that was there for the Rebecca and Nathaniel stuff, and just in general, it just felt a little tacked on to me. And I will say, and this isn't necessarily a complaint with the season, but I really didn't like this season's intro. I think I've made that clear before. I said it in episode 2, and I'll say it again. I still don't like the intro. I never really warmed up to it. I don't think did a good job of summing up the season all that well. It felt like a cool idea, but especially when it came to other Rebecca or Deborah, whatever her name was, I really wasn't a fan. I never really laughed at anything she said. I was not upset that they did not have the intro in the finale, because I just never really liked it all that much. I think the first season intro was still the strongest easily, but 2 and 3 I really did warm up to. This one, unfortunately, didn't happen, but other than that, I think this was a near perfect season. Again, it really does benefit from the more small-scale storytelling. It did a good job of closing out many arcs. A lot of threads that were sort of hanging were very much tied up here. We really did get some sort of closure for everyone, whether it was something as minimal as, just like I said, Heather and Hector's wedding, or Valencia and Beth getting engaged. We still did get to see a little something from everyone, and so at the end of the day, I can't be more satisfied with this season, and the work that Aline, Brosh, McKenna, and Rachel Bloom have done across these 4 seasons really does show here. Again, it's rare when a show can have this little stakes and still absolutely impressed me, absolutely stunned me. And it's not like there wasn't stuff going on this season, because there was. I mean, we had the whole thing with Rebecca and her sort of, relapsing and things like that, and us getting worried that her borderline was going to get the best of her, but then she wanted antidepressants, and we saw her recovery. The whole season was supposed to be about progress. The whole season was supposed to be about how much these characters have grown and matured, and I think it very much did work as that, and I think because of that, I was not upset with the more sort of fun, lighthearted tone the season was trying to go for. The darkness was definitely still there. It just wasn't as prominent in other seasons, and it wasn't supposed to be. This was supposed to feel like a much more welcoming, much more positive season. I think it really did benefit from that overall. And in terms of final seasons, this is as everything pretty much that I could have asked for sure, and there really isn't too much that I can complain about. So overall, I am going to give the season of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend overall in A. And, well, with that, guys, we've come to the end, and I know it's very sad. I am still, honestly, having a hard time processing the fact that the show is done. I have absolutely loved getting to review this show for you guys, and I know a lot of people don't watch the show, and it's unfortunate. I'm honestly surprised that they're doing those concerts, because I didn't really think the show had that much of a fan base. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic that they're doing those concerts. I'd really love to go to one of them. I don't think I'm going to, but I think it's awesome that, people are finally getting to see them in concert, but I really did not think the show had that big of a fan base, and to see the outpour that the show has gotten is really great, and, I just can't praise this show enough. This is a show that I think handled things like, mental illness and abortion, and even things like generalizing men and women and the certain gender roles that they play, subverting certain tropes or romantic comedies. I mean, the whole thing was supposed to be a deconstruction of romantic comedies, and it very much did work as that. And just in general, it's a show that I'm very much going to miss for sure. The work that Rachel Bloom and Aline Brosh McKenna have done has just been extraordinary, and definitely, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see what Rachel Bloom is going to do next. I mean, after this, she is a a huge talent for sure, and I want to see her in everything. I really, this should be a girl that should be in basically everything, and I want to see her do as many projects as possible, and not just voice roles in animated movies. I want to see her take on actual roles, but either way, that's it for my reviews. Again, I want to thank you guys for watching all of my reviews for the show across 5 years. Definitely really do appreciate it. Let me know what you guys thought of this finale. Would love to hear your thoughts on it. If there's anything that I didn't cover, which more than likely there are always things that I do leave out, and trust me, I am cognizant of it. There are just times where I will be editing a review and I'm like, oh shit, I wish I talked about this. I wish I brought this up. So again, if there's anything I left out, just let me know, and I will try to, answer you guys about it and give it, answer it to the fullest of to the best of my ability. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Once again, thank you guys for watching my reviews for the show over the years, and we'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.
You ruined everything, you stupid bitch. Uprooted everything and said you'd made a switch, but you're still a